So the subject tonight is glowing, is glory and glowing, and our bodies. And I don't think we look enough at this subject. And so I'm going to throw a scripture at you because that definitely makes sure you know I'm a Christian. And I'm going to refer roughly from 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 6 to 18. And that's the sort of ballpark that I'm going to speak from, because I think that's good on this one. I don't know whether you know the story of Francis of Assisi. We have a handful of people who've recorded some interesting things that went on in Francis of Assisi's life. It's an extraordinary ministry and life he had. If you don't know, his ministry basically began because he met God, and he was very rich, very wealthy, and he felt a call to become a priest, and because it was part of the Catholic thing. So there was only the Catholic Church, if you like, at that point in the West. So he wanted to do that, but they didn't want to let him do that. His dad didn't want him to do that, so he got the bishop in, and the bishop said, "You can't do this. You're too wealthy, and you've got other things to do." And he said, "No, I give all this up to follow God." So there and then he took all his clothes off, get in front of the bishop, stood naked, gave him his clothes, and said, "You take everything. I'm just going to follow God." So he's a bit of a crazy guy, and I love that. Not that I'm recommending that. Please don't go away and do that tonight and say that Paul told you to do that. I'm just quoting Francis of Assisi's life. And towards the end of his life, there's this incredible story. And it is incredible. It's like, as a Westerner, as an enlightened Westerner, you do a double take, where there's a report from one village that they watched Francis go up in the mountains to pray, and he would often do this at this time, 2 or 3 days. He would disappear in the mountains and pray. And then the morning came, and everyone got up and started to do stuff. And then I can't remember exactly how, or maybe it's not recorded how, but they started to realize that it wasn't the morning, that it was still the middle of the night, because the light wasn't the sun where the sun would normally rise. It was coming from the top of the mountain, but it was so bright, it was like daylight. And they concluded in awe that this was Francis praying on top of the mountain. And we don't know what to do with these things as Westerners, because we've got a real problem, because our culture went down a completely different line. It's like you have this contrast between these crazy things that were being recorded happening in the medieval times, and then at the same time you have Isaac Newton codifying gravity and instituting very materialistic, mechanistic worldview, even though Newton seemed to follow God. So we don't know what to do with those things. But we know from the scriptures that this is, if maybe meant to be normative, but it certainly appears occasionally. So this passage Paul has already referred to, and it's in the context of Moses coming down from the mountain, having spent time with God, and the glory, it describes the glory, the Shekinah that's coming from him is so intense. I'm avoiding the words that go with light, because it doesn't necessarily say that, but it says it's so intense that he covered his face, so that it would seem so that they wouldn't see it fading away. But the intensity of that encounter with God and the impartation of that covenant was so bright they couldn't handle looking at him. And Paul's kind of referred to that. But he does this extraordinary thing, and you might miss it, but in verse 6, we can read this, and the way the ESV writes it in English, it sounds, or maybe it's just the way I've heard these words, it sounds so twee, so nice, so like sweet, like a dessert. It says, "For God who said, 'Let light shine out of darkness,' has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. This verse, that's extraordinary. Let's just slow down for a minute. Well, from my cultural background, I would completely miss this. I think if you've been in a lot of church setups, you'll miss this. You'll be inoculated to what it's saying. He's comparing what has gone on in, let's cut to it now, in your heart, in the people, in the listener's heart, but your heart. He's comparing it to creation. He's saying the first act that God did is saying, let there be light. And he's saying the same God who did that has done, the implication is a comparable and a creative effect in you, in your heart. That's a problem with the heart. It's one of those soft blanket words. It means the inner alive mechanism of your being has had something go on in it that's just like creation, where God went, light! And it formed stuff out of which everything came. He's saying the same thing's gone on in his listeners. You've heard something extraordinary inside your inner workings. And it's a light that's the knowledge, the knowing, there's some kind of intimate connection with this thing called glory, which is, this is a hard thing to grasp. I think, I don't know anyone who's expressed it well enough, but it's like it's one of the inner layers, maybe the last layer of who God is before you actually are totally in God. It's glory, it's his essence in the expression, in the face of Jesus Christ. So you've encountered the expression, the face means expression, the outward, da-da, of who I am, of Christ. Met that, it's caused this explosive, let there be light in you, which has formed a completely new creation, which is Paul's anthem. He constantly refers to new creation. It's his wording of what is going on. That's extraordinary. And then he contrasts it. He goes, this extraordinary thing, we have it in jars of clay. We have it in flesh bodies. This totally new, extraordinary creation, this E=mc² thing, has gone on inside you in clay. Clear reference to Genesis 3, the flesh. It's in this weak, pathetic, if you like, thing that's so broken, so base. And that's where the glory is. And there's some purpose, there's some wisdom in this so that it's seen to be God who's doing it. Can't be us. Which our clay can't be producing that. So he's saying this, what he's going to talk about is extraordinary. What he already has been talking about is extraordinary and is extending it. And it's something going on in our bodies. I'm going to keep jumping to us. Of course, he's referring to them, to his listeners, to the Corinthians. But this is, we can take a lot of this directly into referring to us. Something is going on in your bodies. If you jump beyond what I've said onto the 2 Corinthians chapter 5, death will be swallowed up by life in you bodily. I mean, this is crazy mystical stuff, but something is going on in you. Some transmogrification. That's not an English word. Don't try and look it up. I wonder what the subtitles will create for that. It's some kind of that's going to create this utterly, not just death disappeared, but death swallowed up by life. And it's happening in a body, in your body, in the mechanisms of your being, and even in the flesh expression of your body. Let me also undermine some other thing that we have in our head, another brain worm that we have. He's not just talking about something in the distant future. This is not all eschatological teaching. If you look at verse 16, I'm going to throw a load of stuff at you, give you a headache, and then we'll unpack it a bit more practically. It's verse 11, first of all, it's manifested in you now. This is something going on now. As he suffers, it comes out now. It's a daily change, verse 16. By that, he means it's an incremental change. It doesn't necessarily tick a box every day, this increases. He says day by day. It means it's growing, it's expanding. Your inner man is expanding constantly, now. And then the ESV has this, I just don't like this translation here. It says preparing. I don't know what it says in your version. It says preparing us for a huge, glorious outcome. But the trouble with preparing is it sounds like the future. But the Greek is, it's present, active, present, middle voice, which means it is now. It means accomplishing it now. It's dynamic. It's happening now. And it's middle. It's in cooperation with you. So there's this active now. This is actually changing you now and forming an eternal weight of glory in you now. So this isn't all just some time in the future. I don't know, some day you might think of where we're all going to stand in front of Christ and this, bang, this happens. That may be your theology, or it may even be correct theology, but if you try and read it into this text, you're adding to what it's saying. And another thought, just to drop in, just because I'm just feeling geeky now before I just fall on the floor vibrating, is verse 15. Many people will get this. So many people quote that verse from Jesus where he says, the way is narrow and few will find it. Here's a contradiction. Many people will find it. So if you're just quoting the Jesus one, you probably haven't understood something about what Jesus meant. Because it's many. Jesus also says many people will come to the feast at Abraham's table. So again, you get this sense of expanding, like God has said, light through Christ, and a total change, new being is coming out, it's forming in you, in your body. So I've already said this, but Moses' face shone with the glory. In chapter 3, verse 7, it says that they couldn't gaze on it because of that glory. This thing is powerful. If it wasn't for the fact it was hidden and buried in a jar of clay, we'd all be going, whoa, too bright, whatever that brightness is, be too much. And then he goes through suffering. So the context of this is he's telling them, guys, yeah, I'm suffering. And they're worried about him, but it's okay. I mean, it's not, but it's okay. And he contrasts it. He goes, I'm afflicted. Here's what he says. I'm just going to translate it my way, taking the Greek. He says, we're squeezed by what's going on, but we're never squashed. It's just impossible to squash us. But I'm being squeezed. He says, we're constantly out of resources. We've come to the end of ourselves, but not fully run out. It's like there's some resource always there, even at the end of our resources. He says, we're rejected, but somehow not rejected, not abandoned. We're rejected by everyone, but then we're left with a sense of we're not rejected by God. He's contrasting these two things like, this should destroy you, but it doesn't because something else is going on. And the fourth one is we're knocked down. It's like he's saying we're defeated, but we're not defeated. We're not destroyed. It's like everything says we've been knocked down, that's it. But we're not. Can you see he's talking about resurrection? He's saying, you do everything. You destroy us and we're not destroyed. Because something else is going on that you can't touch in that way. But it looks like, because we're in these jars of clay, like it's falling apart. But it's not, because there's this vibration energy, resurrection, ascension, power, while vibrating, doing something that I can be weeping and crying at the end of myself, and yet there's something else remains that takes me to a different place. So I've lost, but I've won. That's the picture is flowing. And then I could expand on verse 14 and 15 as well. But I don't know how much you want me to geek out here. But I'll try and summarize it. Because again, you could think this is talking about the summer, the future rather. The summer? Maybe next summer. The future. But he's saying, hey, look, guys, God didn't abandon Jesus, even though he looked like he was abandoned, but caused him to rise and stand with God. And he's saying, I'll believe that he'll do this for us. And he's talking about both, if you're physically alive and you're physically dead, he'll do the same. I expect he will do the same. That it'll look like we've had it, but we won't have. We will stand somehow, supernaturally. We will stand. We're uncrushable, even though we can be crushed. And he says he'll do the same for you guys, Corinthians, whenever you struggle. It'll be like you've been squeezed and squashed, but you're not squashed. That's what he's saying. Because of this, he's gone from his glory shining out of Moses' face and the glory forming within us. Explained suffering so they don't lose hope. He says, yeah, guys, it's going to look like I've had it. It's going to constantly look like I've had it. And you're probably going to feel like you've had it. But there's something unseen to look at that is going on. Buried deep within the mechanisms of your being, totally visible in the unseen realms. All the divine beings are staring at you. This glory is forming within you through these things. Now this is extraordinary. He says, these light and momentary afflictions, these temporary things, this struggle we have, it's not preparing, as I've said. I don't like that translation. I don't think it's a good one. It doesn't impart the right thinking from the Greek tenses. It's building in you your responses to that, because it's middle voice, cooperation. Your responses to that are establishing this gazing on the glory within you. So your response, here, I'll summarize it. Try and be less geeky. The way you face death, daily dying, has the opportunity to reveal this glory light in you. As you die, his glory comes through you. That's what Paul's saying. As you cease to live from fear of death, because that's what your flesh will be screaming, they're squeezing you. As I cease to react to that and try to win and defend myself and walk through it, then the glory gets built within me. And it starts to shine out. Oh, Jesus. I don't think this is talking about your moral behavior. I don't think Paul's emphasis here is if you're a really good believer, like, you're really kind and you're full of generosity and good stuff, then you're going to have this glory manifest through you. That's not the emphasis here. He's not saying that. He's saying, if you die, then the glory comes through you. And he doesn't mean physical death. He means the letting go of the fight, flight, freeze mechanism that screams at you in your flesh, to surrender into this. So instead of relying on the resources of your flesh to defend yourself, but lean back into the unseen river resources, which is it's baptism. You're dying and then you fall into the river and it flows. Then the light increases. Something shifts in your being. It's like it's let there be light in more. It's not earned. It's died. I don't know how to put that in the tense of English. You can't earn it. It's death, but life. How else can you have resurrection power unless you die? And you die with him. So as I'm experiencing, he's going, yes, with me, and the Spirit pulls me through into a different state of being. And this is not merely some kind of psychological benefit. It would do that, no doubt. And there are other ways to get a similar psychological benefit. But Paul is saying, no, this is more than that. This is glory. Because what is coming out, I'm going to use the L word because I don't know what else to say. But the trouble is, as soon as I say the L word, it triggers stuff, doesn't it? What comes out is love. Trouble is, that to us that usually means soft, fluffy blankets, being felt like I'm accepted, warmth. No, love is so settled on who it is, because it's God's nature, so settled, so secure, he just flows outwards. It just gives and releases, because why would he need to do anything else? Because he's complete. That's the foundation of love. It is this total wanting others to flourish, not with a deliberate choice to sacrifice self anymore, because I see that there's no point in protecting the self. It doesn't work like that. That's gone. I'm just left with others flourish. And that is so deeply satisfying. I guess if you're a psychologist, you would say the ego has gone. It's just, you sit there quivering with this love that delights in others flourishing. But it's so hard to put that into words. It is a movement, an expression, an ascension that goes on within you. That is, how do you capture that with words? We're trying to paint a picture of something that is glory. And somehow the door has been opened. Well, the somehow is through Christ. The door has been opened for us to hit that laser light and be filled with it, and it come out through these clay pots. Wow. That's you. This is not some kind of incremental get to be a better Christian. Now, this is something that, again, I say the word and we have all these things attached to it, so we miss it. But glory, Shekinah, we are entwined with the Shekinah. We know the intimate, entwined, bound together with the Shekinah of God through the expression, the opening of Christ. God chose to open himself up through Christ. The invisible God became visible in Christ. The unknowable God became knowable by his expression, Christ coming out, the Word, the living Word. So something goes on in me. Now, if this dying process gets accelerated, I understand you will glow. Now, I've been in a couple of situations where someone has come up to me afterwards and said, Paul, while you were speaking, you glowed. And I went, oh, that's sweet, that's nice. Thank you. No, and they went, no. It looked like there was light coming from you. And, I'm British, so we downplay everything. Because it's British. It's extremely funny. And I'm like, right, okay, yeah, right. But they were serious. It may have been a German who was telling me. I don't know. And I was like, interesting. You may have heard me tell this story of being in a ministry, like serving people in a church in the countryside in Britain, tiny, small gathering. And this elderly lady who came to the front and because she wanted to experience what I was talking about the openness of heaven and being able to enter into the heavens and taste and drink now, that you can actually drink wine now in heaven. And she said, I want that. And she came forward and not known anything like this before, just a normal churchgoer. And she started to worship and by lifting her hands and going, oh, Jesus. And we watched as she just suddenly got lost, as she got caught up. And the other person who was praying with me kept looking at me, and slowly our mouths opened, because it seemed to us she started to glow. First of all, her face changed so that she looked happy. Then she got very happy. Then it seemed like creases in her skin disappeared. It's like as she smiled, the smile got wider, like her skin kind of stretched and got like incredible facelift, instant. But it wasn't instant, it was gradual. So it's like you're going, is that really happening? And then it looked like there was light on the palm of my hand, because I'm doing the Christian thing, you put your hand close to someone's face when you're praying for them. That's what Christians do, isn't it? So I'm praying like that. Not against my face, against her face. And it looks like there's light coming off it. So I'm like going, was that a reflection on her face? And then the other person praying with me is going, what? We're looking and we know what we're talking about. Like, what is that? And this went on. I mean, everyone else is some are worshipping at the back. There's about 25 people in the meeting. Some are looking at her going, oh, that's lovely. And she's going, oh, Jesus. And she went like this for about 5 minutes. It's a long time. And I didn't want to interrupt it. It was like, I'm like, wow. And then slowly she came back to earth and the glow, and that's one of the reasons I thought there was a glow, because the glow went. And the furrows on her face came back. And she looked like the 80-year-old, 85-year-old woman again that she was. Sweet, beautiful woman in an 85-year-old body. But it was like temporarily my and my other person's perception, at least our perceptions, was that we saw a little bit who she really was. And and this is how I will put it now, it was like it overwhelmed death. It overwhelmed the aging lines in her face and her features. And she started to shine. And it was perceivable in this dimension as literal light. And of course, when that sort of thing happens, it's kind of semi-spectacular. So you're like, wow, wow. I want that to happen again. But these things are made for us to meditate on and catch hold of what it's about, more than to pursue the detail of what just manifested. And I see that this is what is going on in all of us. And I bet there's moments when it breaks in your life, when people think, ooh, you came alive for a moment there. Ooh, what was that? And they wouldn't be able to word it. They wouldn't be able to express it. Maybe their perception could not catch any physical change, but something came out. But I think a time is coming when the hunger will increase more and more for people to live in this. Not so that you can have a fantastic Christian meeting. That's a nice thing. But this is way more than that. This is for you over breakfast, over just hanging out with Jesus, over talking to the neighbor. In fact, it's not really any of those situations, rather all of those situations. The point is the glory, not the sign and the wonder. The sign and the wonder is pointing to the glory going on in you. And I think you can accelerate it. I think it's possible to accelerate it, because I think the key here that Paul is talking about is death. And so what death is, it's the reversal of what went on in Eden, which is where there was a grasping for something with the use of this thing called skin, flesh, physicality. To see something beautiful, to take it and to live from it. Which, again, the Genesis makes clear that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the intimate knowing of good and evil, is not evil. Clearly God has knowledge of it, and so do the divine beings. It's not time. It would imply that the maturity of Adam and Eve was not there yet to handle this. And it would kill them. It would be too much. The flesh would become them and inhabit them rather than them inhabit their flesh. And it does stuff that they can't handle. It opens their eyes so they see they're naked. It's too quick. It's like being something ripped off that they weren't ready for. And that death is drawing life energy from this flesh. And as I go deeper in this, I can feel that flesh energy. I don't know about you. If I could talk about that flesh energy and found words for it that would express it, that would enable you to get it more, I'd love more words to do that. But it's kind of like a vibration energy that I can feel in my arms and legs and torso that says it wants to survive. And yet at the same time, I feel a tingling of the spirit in my body that wants to swallow it up. And I have a choice to either jump into the energy of live, or fall back into the flow of the spirit. And you know which one you're in by how you react. When stuff happens to you, the way you react reveals which energy has dominance. And if I can let that reaction of anger rise and let it, and instead of living from it, kind of breathe it out and walk through it. I don't make it go. I just go, whoa, there's this anger. Feel that energy and walk through it. Because you've got to die. It's not a, ooh, that was easy. I felt the anger and went, go. No, I felt the anger and I went, and I didn't rely on my own cognitive behavioral therapy to sort my thinking out alone. I fell into this flow, this ancient flow that goes back through the walk of humanity, of discovering this, of all the way back to people like Enoch, who could walk in this, who's still teaching this to people, to fall into that river. And you respond differently. But it's more than character. You have just engaged the life that swallows death, which causes glowing. And that, which is the glory. If you want, so you either pursue dealing with the flesh because you want to be sorted out and you want to live a good life. And I don't want all these hassles of anger and all these things. That's a good thing. That's a tree of knowledge of good and evil thing. That's good. That's okay. Or it's like, no, I want to go into glory where I die. So I walk this out, but at the same time, Holy Spirit, teach me to die and resurrect, because I know you are resurrection. And I want that glory to live in me. Oh, Jesus. You were made to house glory. Paul calls it an eternal weight of glory. Let's decode that as simply as much as we can in a couple of sentences. Not to do with time, another realm, that's eternal. Another age, another set of ages, not time-based. So you've left time. You've left consciousness of mortality. Eternal weight, that's kabod, that's like you become solid. You become settled, heavy. In the Hebrew mind, the more solid something is, the more real it is, if I could put it that way. Like, God is a rock. It means it doesn't mean, you bang your foot against him. It means nothing moves that. Not in a bad way, like he's stubborn. No, nothing moves, is solid. Other things are like wind and just go round it. They're like grass, they move, but he's rock. It's why C.S. Lewis, when he was writing the book, The Great Divorce, chose as a metaphor for what it was to be in heaven, was that everything in heaven was so solid that all those who have come from not heaven found that the grass, or the grass, depending on where you are from in England, the grass hurt your feet because you weren't solid enough to handle how solid the grass is. You appear like a ghost compared to the heavenly realities, which are so solid. You become, outside of time, solid. And you radiate this energy that creates, that's love, that is, creates and causes to flourish and laughs and dances and is alive in a way that we can't yet fully grasp. More alive than anything alive we've ever met before. Like it is life itself. Wow. That's what's going on in you. And a little thing like physically dying can't affect that. A little thing like physically dying it's not even an interruption because it carries on. It carries on. It's how we respond now that determines how much of that glory comes through you now. Wow. And they said that when the Jansenites in what we would now call the Netherlands, when they met God in their monastery, this was about 500 years ago, they came out of their monasteries so full of the glory and love of God, they didn't know what to do with it. So there was no evangelism training course in those days. So they went to the villages and they said, well, we'll just sit here and we'll vibrate with the love of God that we've encountered and just see what happens and pass it on to the village. So they sat in the middle of the village and vibrated and glowed and got lost in ecstasies in the middle of the village. And as people went by, they got healed. And that got worse and worse. More people got healed. Villages were transformed. Till eventually the authorities of the day sent some people to stop them because for various reasons they were upset with what they were doing and how they were disrupting the order. So they sent to stop them, and they found they couldn't stop them. So eventually they used force against them, and they took swords and tried to kill them. But what they found is that when they were in these ecstasies and in this glory, the swords would just bounce off them. They found the only way to kill them was to wait until they weren't manifesting the glory. And then they could kill them. And I'm not suggesting you go and do that as homework. But And again, as Western mindsets, we'll read that and go, no, it's not that you want to believe it, but it's hard to get it in because of Isaac Newton and everything else, like physicality. But this physicality is being swallowed up by life. And that's this light of this glory. So let's do a little bit of that now in the last few minutes of this. Maybe I don't know whether we'll have time for questions. I don't know, but let's do this. So what I want you to do is get comfortable, relax. Maybe put your hands at your side. Just make sure you can relax all your muscles, and let's just become aware. Enough of me teaching, because Torah teaching is good, but we have to do it. Just become aware of your body. Just feel, sense your body and your breath. And now I want you to introduce the thought that you are not body. It's just something you wear. It's a beautiful expression of who you really are. It's a garment. And I want you to feel your body as a garment, as Paul says, as clothing. Feel it. You're wearing it. You're not it. We break connection of thinking that we are a body, and we realize it's a wonderful garment. And I'm grateful for it, to be able to express myself. But this outer garment sits on top of an inner garment, an energy. Feel an energy within your being now. The Spirit, the Holy Spirit, entwined with you like a river, like an electricity, like a vibration that sits with you, if you like, under your skin, in a deeper skin. And it's pushing out to swallow up this outer body with its fears and doubts, anxieties, angers. I want you to breathe in, big breath. As you breathe out, your inner body breaks out through your outer body. And do that again. Breathe in. And it's like you go, light, come out. Whew. Come out from within you through the thin veil of your flesh. Do that again. Breathe in, light. Let it rise up above your day, what you've experienced today. Keep breathing, by the way. Rise up above your experience of today. Kind of look down on today and all your reactions and non-reactions. Don't go into detail, but look down on all the things of today in one group. And let go of your reactions and let light come through you into your day. Light. Laugh off bad reactions, grasping reactions. I let go. I'm an eternal weight of glory. Whew. I am an eternal weight of glory. Speak that over my resources, my fear of not having enough. I'm an eternal weight of glory. Shine. Shine. Hear the vibration, hear the frequency of that shining, like a note. A beautiful, constant note coming through your being. Yeshua. You might find yourself having rapid thoughts with ideas and revelations on what to do and how to be. Just take them without grasping them. Just let them go through you and feel them and hear them. You're becoming solid in a beautiful way. Glory. The maker of universes is entwined with you. Wow.